Hey, are you tired of jumping into Facebook's ads manager, putting in a bunch of random targeting options in the hopes that they're going to work, only to end up spending a bunch of money that went down the drain? Well, today I'm going to show you the best Facebook ads targeting strategy so you can get the best bang for your buck. What's up, everybody? Alvaro here from Alvaro Barrios Digital, and today we're talking about targeting. This is obviously super important because you can have the greatest ad copy, the greatest creative in the world, but if you're not getting in front of the right people, then you're going to waste a lot of money. Now, before we get into how to do Facebook ads targeting, I'm first going to talk about what you don't want to do. So what you don't want to do is to jump into Facebook Ads Manager with zero plan, just start typing away random things in the hopes that they're going to appear, and then once you find one or two things, you rely on the Facebook suggestions button. And the reason why you don't want to do that is because I work with a lot of different business owners in a lot of different industries and niches, and I can tell you from industry to industry to industry, that suggestions button is very limited in terms of what you can actually target on Facebook. It pretty much gives you the same suggestions, which means everyone else who's doing the same thing, which is the vast majority of people, you're going to be going up against the same targeting options that they're using. So it's going to be very competitive, your costs are going to be higher, and you have to pay more for every new lead or purchase. So that's why you want to set up your targeting in a way that you're not only using targeting options that your competition is not using, but you're also using other targeting features, which we'll talk about in a second, that help you make your audience more narrow as opposed to more broad. Now, one thing I don't want you to misunderstand, I'm not saying to never ever use broad audiences or to certainly never use the targeting options in the suggestions tab, because I use those myself still to this day. My only point is that you don't want to solely rely on those. If those are the only audiences that you're going after, it will be a little bit more difficult and more competitive, but you do certainly want to have other ad sets and other audiences set up in an optimal way. And speaking of that optimal way, let's get into that right now. So the tool that you want to be using for this is called Connectio, and Connectio has a couple of different tools available to them, and we're using the audience tool within Connectio. So let's go ahead and dive right in, and I will give you a little tour of how this works and how you can optimize your targeting with it. All right, so here we are inside of Connectio. Now, Connectio is a paid tool, so it's not free, but I do think it certainly is worthwhile paying for it in order to get some better and more optimized targeting. So here's the interface, and like I said, there are multiple tools inside of Connectio. I only have access to the target and audience tool. You can check out the other ones if they're of any interest to you, but I particularly just like the target and audience tool. So it's gonna look like this, right? You're gonna have your ad account right there. You get to choose the country that you're based in, and in this case, I'm gonna use an example. Let's say you're in the outdoor niche, right? So you target people who really like to go hiking, camping, backpacking, all that kind of stuff. So you know, let's just say you're new at Facebook ads, you're not really sure what's available out there. So what you do here is that you just start putting in relative terms to your industry, right? So if we're talking about the outdoor space, certainly hike, right? For people who like to hike, we're gonna add that. We'll do hiking, right? You do want to add multiple variations of the same word. There we go, bunch of different terms right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on the search button right here. And what Connectio does is that it's gonna find all the available targeting options inside of Facebook with these words in them, or the string of letters, actually, I should even say, and I'll show you what I mean by that. And so before I actually get into that though, a couple of things. So once you do your initial search right here, it's telling me I found 41 results. You can expand that search a little bit more with the extensions over here. So if I wanted to look for the hiking association or whatever that might be, or the camping foundation, you know, I can, you know, include all these as part of the search terms. And then also if there are things that are coming up that simply aren't relevant to the search terms that I want to be looking at, I can block them right here. So I can say exclude, right, you know, this one right here if I don't want to include resorts, which actually, yeah, resort I would say would not be relevant. So I'm going to say exclude on that one. And probably series doesn't really make sense. And then that should be good. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply those filters with the expansion search terms right here, and also the exclusions of those right there. So I'll apply filter. Awesome. So like I said, here are all of the search terms. So we have, you know, the American Hiking Society, APO Hiking Society, Backpacker Magazine. Backpacker is backpacking. Backpacking Light magazine, so on and so forth. Camper van. So here's what when I said up here, it's gonna find the available targeting options with similar or the same string of letters, here's a good example, right? Because I actually put camping. I did not put camper, but it's saying that camper van, right? Camper is close enough, so put that in there, which is fine, right? I'm okay with that. And then obviously, you know, camping world, hammock camping, RV camping, all that kind of good stuff, right? So here, right off the bat, I have a really good idea of what is available to me. And not only that, I get to see the audience sizes right here over on the right hand side, because some of them, right, like this one, 13.3 thousand, that's pretty small for, you know, a Facebook ads audience. But let's go ahead and say that we want to use some of these targeting options, but we also want to know the people who are fans or follow these interests on Facebook, what else are they following out there, right? Because while these could be the, you know, core audiences that we might go after, everyone else in the outdoor space is going to be using these same targeting options, right? And so we want to find a way to make it a little bit more to our advantage, where we're narrowing down to a more specific audience that is a little bit less competitive, right? So let's go ahead and add camping survival, camping world, campsites, hiking trails, Ozark trail hiking, Superior hiking trail, ultralight backpacking. Anything else I want to put in here? Okay, let's go with that. This is just a random example anyway. So I chose, I believe, 7 different options. Now I can come up here and click on view audiences, right? So this is going to show me the search terms that I have just selected. Now, a couple of cool things here is that you can actually directly from Connectio apply these to an ad set. If you click apply ad set, it'll create a new ad set. It'll show, you know, it'll ask you what campaign you want this to apply to, or you can apply it to an existing ad set right here. So those are really two cool features. You don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel, so to speak, inside of Connectio. You can just do it straight from here to your Facebook Ads Manager. But the cooler thing that I want to show you actually is that is the show suggestions button right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. There we go. And now what it's doing is that it's actually giving me targeting options that people who follow these 7 options that I chose up here, what other interests are they actually following? This is based upon real data, right? It's not the hypothetical in any way, shape, or form. So this is telling me of these 7 options that I chose up here, these are the other interests that they are following as well, right? So mountaineering, nature science, outdoor recreation, outside magazine, picnic, survival kit, survival skills, survivalism, all this kind of stuff. So now I'm getting a better idea of like, oh, okay, I previously maybe wouldn't have targeted these because they're maybe a little bit beyond the initial scope, but here it's telling me that people who are in the audiences that I selected up here, they are for sure also following these interests right here. So not only does this give me additional interest to target, it also allows me to do some layering, and layering is where you put together some narrowing features where it's like, okay, people must be interested in camping, backpacking, all that kind of stuff, and they must also match or be interested in nature science, right? For, you know, for whatever reason we feel that that is important, then we can do that. So now it's gonna make that a much more specific audience. We're going from a very big audience to a much more specific audience, and you can keep on applying these different layers so that your audience gets more and more specific. And I'm going to show you an example of that in just a bit. The last thing I want to show you here inside of Connectio though is that the exercise we just did, we can keep on doing that over and over again. Since, okay, cool, let me go ahead and add nature science, mountains, outdoors, survival kit. So now, right, it says I have 11 audiences selected. I can go ahead and click on show suggestions again, and it's going to modify that. So now look at all 11 of those and see, okay, what else beyond those 11 can it give me, right? So beaches, that's a new one. Bug out bag, fishing, doomsday preppers, lakes, that's a new one, and yeah, a bunch of vacations, all this kind of stuff. So again, these are actual interests that people are interested in based upon the initial 11 that we have selected right here. So what do I mean by layering? Let's go ahead and take a look at an example of that. So here's an example of what I mean by layering is that here we have the initial set of interests, which is, this is where people usually stop. And one thing I also want to say is that these are all or statements. They're not and statements. Most people make that mistake that it's like, okay, people have to be interested in Alice and Olivia and Amy Porterfield and Beyond Yoga. No. Those are all or statements. So they're interested in Alice plus Olivia, or they're interested in Amy Porterfield, or they're interested in Beyond Yoga, so on and so forth. In order to make it an and statement, you must use the and must also match feature. And to utilize that, you just have to click on the button right here that says define further, right? And then the must also match box will automatically appear, right? So we're saying, okay, people have to be interested in any of these interests right here, and they must also match these interests right here. So there's a bunch of different pieces of software: Asana, Canva, HubSpot, etc., etc. And they must also match these ones right here, you know, Birchbox, Coffee, CB2, Everlane, etc., etc. And they must also match these ones right here, which is small business owners, health and beauty page admins, owner and CEO, etc., etc. So it went from a very big and broad audience, because if I was targeting this one right here, I don't know, the audience size would be maybe like 80 million or something like that. And it made it to a very specific profile where it's like, okay, someone from up here, and they're using this type of software, and they're shopping at these different places, and they're also a business owner. That's who I want to get in front of, right? So that's a very, very good and specific audience. I'm going to get in front of a higher quality person while evading kind of the higher competitive targeting options that your competition is using. Now, one other thing too is that you want to be aware of is that when you're doing this, you still want to make sure that your target audience is at least 1 million people. And it's not worth it, to be honest, if your audience ends up being 1 million. And you know, this client specifically has the benefit of having a very broad audience. Literally any business owner is her target audience. But that's not the case for a lot of my other clients who have a very, very specific niche that they're going after, like copywriters, for example. You know, I know from experience, there's not a lot of targeting options available for copywriters. And so I would not be able to do this for that client without creating a very small audience that's under 1 million people, right? So in those cases, I may not do all these and must also match features. But if you're capable of creating these audiences and still keep it above 1 million, so this audience right here is roughly 8 million. And we can look at that actually if I choose this option here. Let me show you here. So 6.7 to 7.9 million is the audience, right? So that's still plenty big. But again, if that was less than 1 million, then I wouldn't do this strategy, or I would get rid of some of these narrowing features just to see if I can get the audience size a little bit bigger. So again, it's very great when you can be specific and add all this layering to build an ultra specific profile that you want to get in front of, but it's not worth it if it gives you an audience size of 1 million or less. So I hope that makes sense. All right, and there you have it. I hope you found that tutorial helpful. Definitely take this information and apply it to your campaigns, and I can assure you that you're going to start seeing better results from your targeting options moving forward. If you have any questions about this topic or any other topic, just let me know, as always, in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them. Thank you so much for tuning in. Here's 2 more videos for you to check out, and I will see you next time.